be challenged by the campaigns. So we need to be very cautious, not cautious, we need to be proactive and make sure that we treat everything well, because they can be called into question. Yes?
And for purposes of ballots, that's also these sign-in sheets, is that a ballot?
No, that is not a ballot. When we're talking about ballots, we're talking about the people who want to run for delegates that we're going to vote for. Steve and then Reese.
I think it's clear in my head, so I'm just going to let my head.
Sure.
If I understand correctly, let's say my precinct has 7 delegates. And after we've done our vote, it'll be proportional to how many people have voted for one candidate, let's say Bernie Sanders, and how many, that 7 maybe gets split up 4-3. Is that correct?
Could be.
So then the Bernie people, if they're the winners, would select 4 delegates.
Yes. 2 men, 2 women.
So along the line.
Right.
And the Hillary people would select 3 delegates.
Right.
Okay. I think I have that straight. Now, let me ask this, if for some reason, and again, I've seen it in other places where you have kind of a small gathering, and there's only 4 people who step up to be delegates for, let's say, Bernie.
I'm going to read that rule next.
So you will allow a slate then?
No. No.
Okay.
No,
That's
they
all
have
I
to
need
be
to
voted on individually. Yes, Reese.
Somebody asked me a question the other day about the amount of alternates that we get, and I was just going by memory, and I don't see it on here. It's this, the amount of alternates that we're getting are the same as the amount of delegates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You're lucky if you get half of them, though.
Yeah.
Because, you know, well, you're making a commitment to go, and you may not get seated. So sometimes we sometimes end up with half of the number of alternates to delegates.
On the floor of the caucus or in the convention you're talking about? The caucus?
Yeah, the caucus.
You mean at the county or beyond?
Yeah, at the precinct level.
Precinct level.
Yeah, if you've got 10 delegates and you get 5 alternates, you're doing good. Because, yeah, chances are you're not going to need that many alternates.
If you're an alternate and you get to the state, you have a really good chance of becoming a delegate.
Well, not so much this year because it's in Tacoma. In Spokane in 2008, there were 300 delegates who didn't show up. 300 did not show up. So you had a really good chance of getting
12.
seated.
You mean at 12, don't you? At 8?
No, I'm talking about 8. Because in 2012, we didn't have a state convention because,
Yes, we did.
well, we had
In
a state
Seattle.
convention, but yeah, wasn't quite as, yeah. So now those people that have won delegates, that are delegates and alternates, do not let them leave.
Yeah.
They may say, oh, okay, I'm done here, I gotta leave. No, they've got to get that certificate of election. You've got to make sure to say, do not leave. If you've been elected, you need to stay and get your certificate of election. Very, very important. Because that's how they get in. They have to show that. Now let's go over the math stuff. Oh, wait, before that, so there's not really much I need to go over in the next page because it's like ending the thing, that kind of thing. But,
Hey, Catherine,
yes, I want to
do you
read this
anticipate
rule.
that there will be more people running than there will be delegate slots, or
Absolutely,
that's what usually happens?
absolutely. There'll be a whole slew of people. Okay, rule number 19. If no one in the group entitled to a delegate, 18. If no one in the group entitled to a delegate wishes to serve as a delegate, the delegates and alternates shall be reallocated in the order determined on the delegate action worksheet to the other presidential preferences. Now, the correct interpretation of this rule is that in order to receive delegates, a presidential preference must have at least one person present willing to serve as a delegate. If no one is present to serve as a delegate for that presidential preferences, any votes for that will be disregarded and the delegate allocation will be made as though that preference receives 0 votes. And as he goes on to say, it's unlikely that this will happen, but that's the interpretation by the state.
Could you just repeat, they must have at least one person.
Willing to be a delegate, yes.
So basically, we don't want anybody walking out of there until someone has said, we'll be a delegate.
The doors
Happen
are
very
locked.
often?
No, no.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
So that means if no one wants to be a delegate, you give something to the next, to another group.
No, they just lose. They lose their delegate.
Well, what if,
Yeah.
hypothetically, say there's 4 delegates elected to candidate X, but
Right,
only one person steps forward being willing to be that delegate, what happens to the other 3?
they're gone. You've lost. You've lost those delegates. That candidate has lost their delegates. They
But
don't get,
not for purposes of the vote for presidential candidate, right? That all still stands.
That's what she's saying.
the purpose is to elect delegates. And if you've only got one person who wants to be a delegate, those other delegates just go away. They're lost,
This is a
basically.
2-part process, right?
Okay.
The first part is voting for the presidential candidate.
Right. And the second
And
part
the
is
second part
vote.
is the delegates. And
Right.
my question is, going back, even if nobody, like the vote is taken, the second tally is taken,
Mhm.
candidate X has 4, candidate Y has 3, okay? The person that has 4 or 3, whoever, doesn't matter, only
Right.
one person steps forward. It doesn't affect the vote for
Yeah.
that candidate, correct?
Well, it doesn't affect the vote for that candidate, but how the delegates, that's what's important, is how many delegates you get. So if you don't get the delegates, then you don't get your count at the state level. You know, when they say in Iowa, Bernie got this many delegates and Hillary got this many, that's based on the delegates that got elected. If they didn't get elected, they don't get that number, that vote.
I was more worried about somebody voting and a whole group saying, well, nobody wanted to go on to the county convention and be a delegate, they just wanted to show up that day. vote,
Right,
be
right,
in
but it
attendance.
doesn't count for any, it doesn't mean
It
anything.
means nothing unless they
It's
follow
a-
through with the second part
Exactly.
of this. Got it.
Right.
So what is the full commitment you're making if you choose to be a delegate? Are you committed to go all the way through the state?
Well, you're committed to go as far as you want to go, but the second step is the county convention in Whatcom County. The third step is the congressional caucus in either Redmond, depending on where you live, either Redmond or Everett. And then the fourth is the state convention. Now, you can enter at any level. You can go in and run for a delegate at any level. You don't have to have won from the precinct caucus. You could decide, well, I think I do want to run. So you can go to the congressional caucus and you can put your name in.
But conversely, you can go to the county caucus as a delegate. I mean,
Right.
And say, I don't want to be a delegate any further on.
Right.
At least you're just.
Yeah, because there's other business that happens.
There's
You're
plenty
voting
of other
on,
people that will,
Right.
as it gets smaller and smaller
right,
and smaller.
you're
But you
voting
carry-
on the
You
platform.
carried your precinct vote forward.
Yes,
Then you got
That's what you want.
Okay.
yeah.
Is this no, Kate, I talked to Catherine, to you about the idea of the Washington is also having a primary, or they're talking about it. Have we decided in Washington if we're also having a primary later on this year?
No, there is a primary. The state
There is,
legislature
yeah.
decides on that,
They
and there will be a
decide.
primary happening May 23rd or something like that, which doesn't count for anything for the Democrats. It means nothing. It means nothing. You can vote or not vote. It doesn't mean anything, because we don't use those votes for anything,
For selected candidate.
for selecting a candidate.
A caucus.